I just inhaled a cookie. But I'm back. All right, we are in Luke 12 today, and Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem. He knows what is on the horizon, and he wants his disciples and his followers to understand the weight of what's going to happen. He becomes more severe and serious with his words and his warnings, because what's at stake is severe and serious. Luke 12 has 4 important cautions for us: hypocrisy, greed, worry, and readiness. Hypocrisy, greed, worry, and readiness. We're going to try to hit all of them today, not waste a minute, right? This is a tiny, short little chapter, 60 verses. But we're going to get through it. So let's begin with verse 1. Meanwhile, when a crowd of many thousands had gathered, so that they were trampling one another, Jesus began to speak first to his disciples, saying, "Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you have whispered in the ear in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the roofs." Right, so Jesus is warning about hypocrisy, and he compares it to yeast, which, as you know, if you've ever baked bread before, and let's be honest, who has not jumped on the bread making train since COVID? Even I did. You only use a very small amount of yeast, like a couple of teaspoons, but that yeast grows quickly. It impacts every single one of the other ingredients. And that's what hypocrisy does. It starts small, but it quickly spreads and it permeates, it infiltrates everything else, which is why we have to be on guard against it. Like all things, hypocrisy is easier to see in others, and that's the warning Jesus gave the disciples against the Pharisees. And we know how disheartening it is when we discover that our leaders, anyone that we look to for guidance, doesn't practice what they preach. It erodes trust, and it causes skepticism, not just in that leader, but toward all leaders. But we also have to be on guard against hypocrisy in ourselves, both for others, because everyone, all of us, are leading someone else, right? If you're a parent, if you're a spouse, if you're a friend, if you're a coworker, we all have spheres of influence in our lives, whether we choose them or not. And we have to recognize how we might be being a hypocrite and how others might be looking at us and becoming more distrustworthy or skeptical. But we also have to look at ourselves, because if there is a tension within us between what we say we believe and our actions, we start to lose clarity about who we really are. Right? We have to maintain a false image, and man, that requires so much work. That requires so much work. I have been a chameleon my entire life, really good at being whoever I needed to be, depending on the crowd that I was with or the circumstances I was in. And it is exhausting. And it becomes easier and easier to justify and excuse our behavior when the gap between our values and our actions gets wider. Right? And we just become more isolated. It's harder to develop deep and real and meaningful relationships. What Jesus is saying here about the dangers of hypocrisy is that it creates a false sense of security. We're doing all this work to hide the truth because we're afraid of not being liked or accepted or respected, but nothing is hidden from God. So it's all going to come out anyway. And when we do this double dealing, or we become really sanctimonious or deceptive, it hardens our hearts. It hardens our hearts, and we become so focused on ourselves that we miss out on the Spirit's nudging and his transformation work. We miss out on that. Verse 4, I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that can do no more. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after your body has been killed, has authority to throw you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Indeed, the very hairs on your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. So I fear people. I fear what they might think. But what I read here is that, and what this reminds me of is that people do not have power over my soul, right? People can do a lot of bad things to me. The worst they could do is kill me, which is a big deal and very scary. But they have no say over my eternity. And the person who does is the one who deserves my respect and my honor and my worship. That's who I should care about. And I can't hide anything from him. He knows how many hairs are on my head. He knows everything about me, everything I've hidden from other people, everything I've hidden from myself. And he still says I'm worthy. He still says I'm valuable. And he loves me anyway. Jesus is telling us to be aware of hypocrisy in others and in our leaders, but also in ourselves. To take an honest look at behavior that falls short of authentic to what we say we believe. And it is hard to look at ourselves with a magnifying glass. It's really hard to search out how we might be out of alignment with what we say we believe to be true. How might we be claiming to follow Jesus, telling others to follow Jesus, but not walking the walk ourselves? It's a hard question, but we have to ask it of ourselves. And maybe we just start small. Start yeast size, but chip away at it. Jesus sees you exactly for who you are. And that should liberate you. Oh, that should be so freeing. That should be so freeing. It should feel like a huge weight off your shoulders. You don't have to try so hard. That should just feel like a huge exhale. Hypocrisy is related to greed, and that's where Jesus goes next. Verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Sounds like my children. Jesus replied, "Man," I like this, "man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And then Jesus told them the parable of the rich fool, involving a rich man who had a massive harvest one year. He didn't know what to do with all of his grain, so he tore down his old barn and built an even bigger one to store it all for the future. And God said to him in verse 20, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." Oh, Jesus is harsh. This is harsh. Only because it is so very true. That's why it cuts. Can anyone else relate to this man? The danger of riches, it's a big theme in Luke, and for good reason. For good reason. To be clear, God does not frown on abundance, nor on smart business practices or saving money. Get those promotions and pay raises and return on your investments. Those are good things. But there's a big difference between those things and amassing wealth for the sake of wealth. In the West, especially in the United States, we live in a culture with a scarcity mentality. We worry, more on worry in just a few, but we worry so much about what might never happen. And we hoard. We hoard out of fear that we won't have enough, or that someone else might get what we deserve, or that what we earned. I had told this story before, so I apologize, but it's so perfect here. My son and I went to Rwanda a few years ago on a mission trip, and part of that, we worked at a school, and we put on these soccer clinics every afternoon for these kids that were all different ages. And one afternoon, we were doing like high school age boys, and this one kid showed up, and he was barefoot. Now, Rwanda, if you have ever been there, the poverty there, it will blow your mind. It is such a poor country. He came and he was barefoot, so he had no shoes. Another kid in our group, another American, had brought an extra pair of tennis shoes. And so he went back to his room and got them and gave them to this kid. And the kid put them on, and they were too big. And then what happened was astounding, because they all sat down, all these kids sat down in a circle, and they started trading shoes. So that everybody could leave with a pair of shoes, and everybody could play. You know, if he had been, you know, I imagine myself, you know, I would probably have kept those and waited until I could fit into them. I want those brand new shoes from the American. But instead, these kids understood what we don't. It's astounding. You know, these families had nothing. They had nothing. They had food insecurity like you couldn't believe. They had to walk down this huge steep hill to get water with buckets. And yet they understood what so many of us don't. That good things are good, but only if we remember that everything good comes from God, and how important it is to share our abundance with others. If your riches are causing you to covet and tightly grip onto your things out of fear, then you're missing the point. We should be rich instead toward God. John Piper wrote about what being rich toward God means. He said, it's the opposite of acting as if life consists in the abundance of possessions, not in the abundance of knowing God. It means moving toward God as our riches, counting God greater riches than anything else on earth, and using earthly riches to show how much you value God. Money is dangerous because it lures our love away from God. Anything that lures your love away from God is dangerous. And the issue with the rich fool, the issue with the rich fool here is not that his fields prospered, it's what he did with it. Be aware of greed. Be aware of it. It's, again, you got to ask yourself these tough questions. Now, greed is closely intertwined with worry, and that's where Jesus goes next. Verse 22. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable you are than birds. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the wild flowers grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. All right. Warren Wiersbe wrote that the English word worry comes from the Anglo-Saxon word that means to strangle. I have suffered from anxiety for as long as I can remember, since I was a child. And that's exactly how it feels. It feels like being strangled. It can be paralyzing. Nothing robs you of peace and rest like worry does. I wonder sometimes, just for myself, if it's self-protection, right? If it's a self-protection mechanism. Like if I think about what could happen or what could go wrong, if I work out the scenarios in my mind 1,000 different ways, maybe if it does go wrong, I'll feel more prepared or more in control. I think that's why I do it. But the truth is that 9 times out of 10, it doesn't go wrong. And even when it does, it's never, ever as bad as I think it's going to be. Especially as bad as I think it's going to be in the middle of the night. It's always so much worse in the middle of the night. What a waste of time and energy. It's exhausting. It's so draining. Corrie ten Boom said, "Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength." Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. That's exactly right. What is so interesting here is that Jesus was telling these people not to worry, and the people that he was talking to had very little, right? They didn't have a closet full of clothes. They didn't know when and if they were going to eat. Most of the world lives like the people in Jesus' day, the people that he was talking to. And he was telling them not to worry about what to wear or what to eat. He was telling people with real things to worry about, not to worry. What do you think he'd tell us about our worries? When we got to choose what we wore this morning, when we drove here in a car, when we're sitting in a warm building, and we're sipping on coffee and eating cookies, what do you think he'd say to us? Right? Right? It puts it all in perspective. All worry does is it strips us of the opportunity to depend on him and the opportunity to see all the wonders and all the miracles that our faith provides. We miss out when we worry. And we pretend that everything is in our own control, when really nothing is. Nothing is. God takes care of birds and meadows. If he takes such good care of them, don't you think he'd take care of his sons and daughters, whom he loves even more? In my Bible, like in the margin next to this passage, I put like dates and kind of sometimes words to mark where I am in my life. And I have March 2020, COVID. Wow. I know worry affects us on such an individual scale. We saw it on a global scale, what worry can do to the entire world. We lived through that. It's crazy that we lived through that. How you can see the grip that worry can have on an entire world. So if you are thinking, well, great, this sounds great. I don't want to worry anymore. But how do I stop it? I am an expert. Actually, I'm not at all. I am the worst. I'm the worst. I need this. I wrote this for myself, not for any of you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Well, how do we stop worrying? Okay, first of all, pray, right? That's always what we do first, right? Pray. Take it to God. Philippians 4:6, Paul says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." So when you find yourself starting to spin, go right to him. Your worries are not going to disappear in your own strength. They're not. So hand them over. Hand them over to him. Cast your cares on him, as Peter wrote. When you feel worry coming on, acknowledge it, and then pass it right along, right? Imagine your worries on a tray, and someone hands you that tray, and you say, "Hey guys, here you go," right? Number 2, gratitude. The brain cannot respond to anxiety and gratitude at the same time. It's an either-or situation. We can feel anxious and other negative feelings, or we can feel grateful and other positive feelings, but we cannot do both at the same time. Our brain is in one or two modes. It's either in parasympathetic mode, which is fight, flight, or freeze, or it's in sympathetic mode, which is rest and digest. Gratitude keeps our brains in that mode, in that resting, digesting mode. So when you feel it coming on, think of something that you're grateful for. You hear this all the time, like do a gratitude practice, do a gratitude journal, all of those. It's important because it works. It works. Every day in the morning, sit down and write a couple things that you're thankful for, a couple people, anything, a few words, and then hold on to those throughout the day when that worry seeps in, because it will, and you just push it back with gratitude. Number 3, focus on today. Remember the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread, one day at a time. What is right in front of you? What is happening today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. I love a to-do list. It is my favorite thing. I like writing things down that I've already done so I can scratch it off. Nothing more satisfying. There's nothing more satisfying. And I have this big, huge list that I call my brain dump list. And it's on my phone. I just anytime I think of anything, I just write it down. Anything I have to do for the rest of my life or that I want to do. And I used to just I used to stare at that thing, read it 8 million times all day long and just feel so overwhelmed. And what I've been doing is instead I look at that list and I take a few things and I write them on a Post-it note every morning. Not that many things can fit on a Post-it note. Right? This is what I'm going to do today. I don't look at that list again until the next day. Right? Focus on today. And be realistic about what time you have for today. And then lastly, I copyrighted this, and I'm calling it the 4-8 practice. I'm sure no one else has ever come up with this idea. I'm claiming it as my own. I actually wrote an article on this. It's the Philippians 4-8 practice. And what you want to do whenever you're starting to feel worry, focus on good things. Things of integrity, things of worthiness, things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. It's a lot of adjectives. There's a lot of things that fall into those categories. Whenever you start to worry, think of something that falls under those labels. Rewire your mind to look for it all day long. Look for those things. You can find them everywhere. You can find them on your kitchen counter. You can find them in your bathroom. You can find them walking down the stairs outside. As soon as your mind goes to a place of worry, pivot and replace it with something beautiful. Okay? Lastly, Jesus warns his people. He's talked about hypocrisy, greed, and worry. He is not pulling any punches. And now he's just going to tell us about how important it is to be ready, to be watchful. And we see this in verse 35. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Truly, I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the middle of the night or toward daybreak. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you don't expect him. All right, Christ's return is certain. Certain, but the time is unknown. And he tells us to be alert and to be watchful and to be ready, because it's most certainly going to happen when we least expect it. In law school, they taught, I know I've said this before too, I'm just repeating everything I have very few stories. Law school, they teach in the Socratic method. It's terrible. Darn, that's Socrates and his methods. Every day you come in and the teacher would call on people randomly, and then you have a conversation. He or she would ask, the professor would ask questions, and then you have to answer and go back and forth for whatever was assigned to read or study that day. And the assignments were not short. They were very long, tons and tons of reading. And it wasn't a situation where if you got called on, you could just say, I don't know. You just couldn't. You would be subjected to a lot of ridicule and and shame. So for 3 years, I had a stomach ache. I was always ready, just in case. Some days, if you did get called on, you had like a reprieve maybe for the next couple of classes, but the threat was always there. And you had to show up knowing your stuff. You had to be prepared just in case. Jesus is coming back, my friends. He is coming back. That is certain, and we need to be ready. We do not know when we're going to get called on, but it could happen any day. And we need to be prepared at a moment's notice. We need to be prepared to act at a moment's notice. Jesus then tells a story about a faithful manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants, and it'll be good if the master comes back and sees the manager doing what he's supposed to be doing. But if the manager starts thinking, well, master's taking a long time to get back, looks like I have some time on my hands, I'll do what I want. I'll get around to what he wants me to do later. And then the master comes back and sees this manager doing what he's not supposed to be doing, what he wants. Well, it's not going to be good. It's going to be very bad. It's going to be like cutting him into pieces bad. It's really bad. It's not only a matter of being watchful. It's also about living as if it could happen anytime. You hear all the time questions about what would you do if you found out you had 6 months to live, or 1 week to live, or 1 day to live. There's songs written about it. There's stories about it. What would you do? How would you spend your time? If you knew for certain that you were going to die soon, what would suddenly become the most important things to you? Have you ever really thought about that question? Not in a just kind of cerebral sense, but in a practical sense. What would you do with your time? And that's the question here. If you knew for certain that Jesus was coming back this Friday at 10 a.m., what would you do between now and then? What things in your life would completely fall away? What would become crystal clear for you? That's how we should live every single day. With urgency, with vigilance, with readiness. Because we know God's promises. We know the gospel. We know God's future plan. We have this knowledge because we know God's word. We have experiential knowledge because we've experienced his love and his peace. Verse 48, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. You have been given much. So you really should be ready. Knowledge is power. And with great power comes great responsibility. Who knew that Spider-Man read the Gospel of Luke? Exactly where he got it. He gets quoted with that quote, and it's really Jesus. Jesus had harsh words and strong warnings here, but he is not playing around, and neither should we. One theologian wrote, Luke 12 is a rebuke to all casual, half-hearted, relaxed Christianity. So when you think about your own hypocrisy, greed, worry, and readiness, are you approaching these things in a casual, half-hearted, relaxed way? Are you approaching them in a, to quote my boys, yeah, kind of way? With the hand. Yeah. I'll deal with that later. Later might be too late. And waiting will cheat you of the heaven on earth that you could be experiencing right now. If Jesus is serious about these things, we need to be serious about them too. And remember that he is with you all the way. He is with you all the way. He's rooting for you. He will provide for you. He will take care of you. He wants the very best for you. Trust him. Trust him in that. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the conviction in this chapter. Lord, thank you for stirring and nudging our hearts toward you. May we live each day as if you were about to come. May we be ready. Lord, help us to be aware of our hypocrisy, our greed, of all of the ways that we allow worry to make us believe that we're in control. And we miss out. We miss out on your goodness, Lord. We know you've got us. You've got us. Let us just rest in the palm of your hand. We love you, Lord. In your name, amen. Amen.
We're just